can hear back there? Awesome. So thank you for coming. I'm Selena. I'm the Northside Neighborhood Coordinator. So I help oversee some of the programming that's been going on in the Northside and some of the different initiatives there, working with folks from the community and then folks in City Hall to see how we can make some of those things in our original plan happen. Now we're in a good spot where we've accomplished a lot from that first plan, and we're ready to kind of re-engage and take a closer look at what we want to see for the future of the North Side. So we're working with the folks from WRT, the firm that did the first Northside Alive plan, so they're really familiar with the area and some of the things that have happened over the past few years, and we're looking for feedback. So tonight I think we're going to talk a little bit about kind of the future and some goal setting and get some ideas from you as far as what the data is starting to look like.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Okay, so my name's Anastasia. I'm an urban planner with WRT. We're a consulting firm with offices in Philadelphia, and as Selena mentioned, our office did the prior plan for Northside back in, starting in 2017. That plan was finalized and published in 2019. So why we're here is it's time to update the 2019 plan. And there's a few different reasons for doing this update to the plan. So one of the things that we're trying to do is align it with new funding opportunities. So we're pursuing with the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development Elm Street designation for the neighborhood, which could open up new funding possibilities for it. And so we need a new plan that meets those certain requirements. That's kind of like the basic reason for needing a new plan. But the other big reason is that a lot has changed since 2019, and we want a plan that reflects that and brings in the future thinking about the next 5 years and our new sets of goals for the next 5 years. So why update now? What's changed since 2019? The pandemic happened. That was a big shift, and a lot of changes have come along with that. Since the pandemic, we talk a lot about rising housing costs across the region, and I'm sure you guys are all aware. So we have these press clippings here on the slide. Pretty dramatic changes in the housing market in this region in the last 5 years. So where the last plan might have dealt with issues around blight and vacancy, those aren't as big of issues today as they were in the past. There's also been new business and corridor activity that we want to reflect in the plan. Big infrastructure and capital investments have been made that further the goals of the plan. So like a lot has been achieved already. And there's been some big demographic changes in the neighborhood as well. So I want to talk a little bit about how much has been achieved since the last plan, because it is really significant. That plan came out in 2019, and since then, we had completed a new park renovation at Friendship Park, which is a big accomplishment. That's getting, we're going to have a grand opening for Friendship Park in May 16th. And Northside Alive got a new brand, got a new identity. With that came the installation of its first mural, first public art. There's there's also the custom banners and the bike, what do you call them? that you have as well. And then there's also bigger infrastructural projects. The conversion of Linden Street that is expected to start construction midsummer this year. There's a planned complete street improvements to East Broad Street that I think are going to start in spring 2027, right? They said today. And then a future conversion of Center Street is kind of next on the docket after those, and that we still need to fundraise, raise the money for that. But altogether, that's a lot of significant design improvements that have been put into place and gotten the ball rolling on since the last plan. So here's a little bit about our process. We launched the process for this plan update in November at the Northside Alive annual meeting. We put out a call for neighborhood champions. Some of them are here tonight, so thank you for coming. Neighborhood champions are people who are stepping up to volunteer and be part of this planning process for us, meet with us monthly, and help get the word out about our events. So we had a meeting with them in January and another meeting in February, and then we launched this survey. So if you don't know about the survey, I'll talk about it in a little bit more detail later on. And there's postcards with QR codes, so please take the survey if you haven't. And we're having our next big public meeting right here at the end of February. Our goal is to complete the plan by the end of March, and that's to align with some of the funding opportunities that we're chasing. And then we'll have a big celebration of the plan in concert with the opening of Friendship Park. So that's when you'll get to see the final unveiling, if you will. So a bit about what we've heard so far. So from the first public meeting in November, we asked residents to weigh in on how they see Northside changing. And we asked this question in a number of different ways. Like you see this word cloud here of different words describing how the place is changing, expanding, challenging, growing, diverse. We asked people what housing issues feel most urgent for Northside today, and people mentioned, difficulty with affordable rental housing, maintaining existing housing quality as some of the top concerns. We also shared a bunch of data with people who attended that meeting that showed a picture of Northside over the last 5-6 years as a steady neighborhood, a diversifying neighborhood, and in a neighborhood that's a little bit under pressure in terms of affordability. So the population's pretty stable. There is some growing diversity, especially among Hispanic households, an increase in Hispanic households. Vacancies are way down, and the share of renters is up, which indicates just a higher housing market. And home values and rent values have skyrocketed over the last 5 years. So there's definitely an affordability strain there. And we're seeing with that income increasing, as is spending power and the cost of living. So we got kind of a mixed picture from all that data of how everything is changing, and we use that meeting as an opportunity to kind of ground truth that and make sure that that's reflecting how people are experiencing the neighborhood today. So our goal with this survey, which is the next part of this process, is to get 800 responses. The state of Pennsylvania's Department of Community and Economic Development wants us to get a lot of responses for the survey. And it's basically, it's called a community perception survey. So it's meant to capture a snapshot in time about how people feel about the neighborhood. Does it have an identity that people recognize? Is it a place that feels safe and comfortable and attractive? These kind of questions. And we're also tracking demographic representation as part of the survey. So we've asked people voluntarily to tell us, how old they are, what race they are. And from that, we can see in the 200 people that have responded so far, which is so great, they do skew towards middle age and mostly white and English speaking. So we really count on you guys to help us get the word of the survey out and help us to match the neighborhood demographics as much as possible, which means reaching more diverse households as much as we possibly can to make sure that they get a chance to weigh in as well. Okay, so just to give you a little sneak preview of what we've gotten back from the survey so far, some pretty interesting results. So there's a really strong neighborhood awareness of Northside. The brand is out there. People recognize this neighborhood as Northside. And then when we asked about neighborhood identity, a lot of people said that it's an arts and culture neighborhood, a historic neighborhood, and a food destination. We heard a lot about how strong walkability is out throughout the neighborhood, but parking and bike infrastructure are pain points for people. The neighborhood scores really well on social fabric, so questions about connections to neighbors, whether it feels welcoming, stuff like that. People are scoring it really highly, which is so nice to see. less so on affordability and kind of core services from the city. And like I mentioned before, the sample is predominantly white, older, and car dependent. So as much as we can, we're going to try to reach the kind of harder to reach populations to make sure that this survey really reflects the whole diverse reality of the neighborhood today. Okay, so the primary business of tonight's meeting is around goal setting. Any questions about all of that I covered so far? I should have paused for questions there.
I don't have a question, but I do have an idea. Perhaps you could put a hang tag on people's doorknobs.
Yeah.
QR code so they can scan and do the survey, because a lot of the people do rent.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Are any of the businesses like Liliums or like that would maybe have a larger group of people from those diverse like coming in, are they involved or in any like part of this program? Or, like,
Yeah.
Go to those businesses and try to reach out to them, because I feel like most of their clientele is within the Spanish community. I mean, I go there too, but
Yeah.
I feel like they have a driving force for people who are going for that.
Yeah, and Selena can speak to this more in terms of outreach efforts, but we've reached out to a number of businesses to interview them about how their business is going, how they can be best supported in the neighborhood. We got a chance to go out this morning actually and interview some businesses. We went to Aki S, which I've heard is great tacos. We didn't have time to have the tacos, which was torture. But yes, I do think that's a really good strategy, and it's also something that we can potentially deputize like our neighborhood champions to go and visit those businesses, take postcards with you, talk to folks about taking the survey and making sure their customers know about it. There's one restaurant where was it that she was going to put the People's Kitchen.
That's me.
Yeah, that's you. on the you were going to put the postcards in the menus, right?
We just got table tents delivered today.
Yeah.
We're gonna bring table tents around the businesses, or like if you wanna, I can give you a chunk. If you wanna
Yeah,
give them
so
to
I
the
have like a
block.
document, my printer is not printing, it's pretty standard.
No, that's fine.
I actually was gonna print that. Because I want a color to put the backs in the menus, but whatever, table tents, anything is great, yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect. See me
that's
out.
great.
Okay.
Yeah, Selena's got all the swag. Okay. So that's all my upfront business. Now to talk about the future. So as we draft the goals for this plan and the strategies that support achieving those goals, we're grappling with some of the ways that the neighborhood is changing, as I mentioned. And change is inevitable, right? Change happens whether we like it or not. Some of that change is really energizing. We're talking about new businesses, rising property values, more activity in commercial corridors. Like, those things are positives. And then some of that change creates pressure when we're talking about housing costs and long-term stability of the neighborhood. So the plan can't be about growth versus affordability. It has to be about both of those things. We have to be able to define what responsible, inclusive growth really means here. Growth with affordability, not versus affordability. So when we talk about the affordability challenge, this is some of the evidence that backs that up in terms of housing pressures specifically. We went from a vacancy rate of around 8% to a vacancy rate of less than 3%. And that's a really significant drop. It means there are very few units of housing available in the market. The share of renters increased, but only a little bit, not a ton. So the mix between renters and owners is relatively stable. And the median home value and the median contract rent, that's where we've really seen the biggest change, right? So we really significant rising costs in rent that far outpaces the rest of the city and the rest of the region. So there's something particular happening in this neighborhood. And then we're also seeing signs of growth. So, you have property values rising. You have, that's an opportunity for homeowners to build wealth as well. So it's kind of something that goes on both the challenges and the positives. It becomes, it's a good thing that the neighborhood's becoming a more desirable place to live, and that people with generally higher incomes are moving into the neighborhood, frequenting local businesses and local services. That creates new opportunities. And we see that in a few different places. So the way the neighborhood is changing, we can see, these are just snippets of some of the data that's going to be fully laid out in the plan. But we're talking about like a few more percentage points of new movers. So people who have moved in the last 5 years, you see on the light blue on the left bottom chart there, that increased from 28% of people in the neighborhood had moved in the last 5 years to 33%. So you have just a little bit more turnover than you had before, but not crazy. And then you have increased spending on every category, right, for how people spend their money in the neighborhood. So we have data on how people spend on groceries, how people spend on food outside the home, going out to eat, that kind of thing. And we see that spending has increased on essential services like housing and healthcare and groceries, which I'm sure we're all feeling. But people are also spending more on entertainment and recreation and travel and food away from home. So there's two stories to tell there. And we're also seeing a lot more visitors coming to Northside every year. So year over year growth in how many people are coming to visit the neighborhood. We have our commercial corridors are something we're really looking at strongly in this plan, thinking about Linden Street and Broad Street and what's the experience like of walking down those streets and frequenting those businesses. How can we make it more pedestrian friendly? How can we make it more lively and support the small businesses that face those frontages? So what does all this mean for our goals? Our goals need to address both affordability and the kind of positive growth that we're seeing that does help local businesses as well. That kind of increasing growth and diversity offers new opportunities for connection and community building and new kinds of businesses to emerge. But we also need to make sure that we're doing what we can at the neighborhood level to address the broader affordability crisis that's affecting the whole region, and ensure that the long-term residents that have been here a long time are not only supported through those changes, but further stand to benefit from the neighborhood growth. We need to think about how we maintain and improve everyday quality of life. So growth and housing aren't the only issues shaping people's everyday experience. There's also parking, there's trash and cleanliness, there's sidewalk conditions, street trees, property upkeep. We've heard a lot already about how lack of maintenance of street trees and sidewalks also create this burden, financial burden on property owners to maintain those pieces. So that's really important. Another really, really important piece of this, and this is the last piece I'll talk about today, is how we sustain the work over the long term. Whether that's the implementation of major capital projects like the conversion of Linden Street, or facilitating connections between business owners, or providing ongoing support for residents facing eviction or struggling to pay for home repairs. All of those things need to be supported by capacity that's built and sustained over the long term. So it can't just be folks from the city leading that effort, it has to be coming from the community as well. So we want to find ways to broaden the leadership among the community members, to structure volunteer energy. One of the things we heard a lot at the last November meeting was about how many people want more events, want more community connection, want more opportunities to volunteer. So how can we channel all of that energy and really give people a good structure for that? And I think ending with that, I think there's also a lot that the city is doing right now across the, outside and around and inside this neighborhood. There's the housing study right now going on studying ADUs. There's a complete streets and bicycle plan that's going to lay out where new bike paths should go throughout the city. There's a forestry plan that's going to look at street trees and their health. And Lanta is also doing planning for their bus routes and evaluating how bus routes move through this neighborhood. And then there's the Linden and Broad Street improvements, which are not just, are right now about like the one-way to two-way conversions and the new bump outs and ADA ramps. But there's also further things we can think about. What's streetscape beautification look like after that? Are we talking about more plantings, more brand elements, more bike racks, more signage that says this is Northside, like welcome? So I think that those efforts that the city is doing is something that the community has to come together to support over the long term. So with that, we wanted to get you guys doing some homework, and it will be fun, I promise. We have a few different things in the room to engage with. First, we're going to do a vision exercise. And this is really helpful for just creating kind of a shared idea about what the future can look like. And it can be like the North Star to make sure that all of our goals that we draft align with that. Sometimes it's really important because plans can get very wish listy, like we wish we could do this, we wish we could do that. And some of those things are great, some of them are a distraction from what's really important. So if we can identify what's really important to the future of the neighborhood in our shared vision, then we can measure our goals against that. Like, are we headed in the right direction with this? So basically, the vision exercise asks you to look ahead to 2030. Imagine it's 5 years from now. What does that success look like? If the plan works, what feels different in the neighborhood? What feels better? What are we really proud of? What have we managed to sustain? What have we managed to change? And for reference here, I'm going to provide the previous vision statement up here. Hopefully you can read it, but I'll read it out loud in case you can't. Northside Bethlehem is a walkable, affordable, family-friendly neighborhood where community members are united to foster a culture of support and where families put down roots, grow, and thrive. So that was the vision statement that folks came up with when they were meeting back in 2017, 2018. And so we want to see if we want to change that, update that, take inspiration from it, do something completely different. All of those thoughts are welcome. I want to invite you to take 5 minutes by yourself and write down your own thoughts about what the vision statement could be or what words you think are really important for that and that'll be the first prompt on your sheet. And then together, working in groups, maybe working with the other folks seated at your table, work to kind of combine those things and to draft together one sentence that brings those ideas together in one statement. And we'll be walking around and chatting with you through that. Before you get started on that, I'm also going to orient you to these boards in the back. These boards have the 4 pillars from the plan, which have to do with design, physical improvements. They have to do with neighbors and economy, with image and identity, how people recognize the neighborhood, and about sustainable organization, which is about what we talked about in terms of leadership and volunteering and that kind of thing, how we sustain that over the long term. So we'd love to collect any ideas you have about goals for the plan or what you think are the most important things to prioritize within these categories. So you can go up and you can read them. They have some information on the data that we've collected so far. They have some example goals, which are just a draft, but something we came up with to kind of get the ball rolling, give you something to react to. And then there's space for you to write on stickies and post your own ideas. But first we'll do the vision exercise together, and then if you're bored with that and you want to go to the boards, you're welcome to do that. If you want to get yourself another slice of pizza, you can do that. And we'll be walking around and chatting with you all.